Hi there, Scott Hamilton, ROCKFILE, back with another podcast review for your ears. Going to be talking about 1984's Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. Short version is, this was always my least favorite of the original three trilogy. Came out the year I was graduated high school. It seemed like it was a little more kiddie-oriented, even though it's very PG-13 before there was such a thing, and we'll cover that in a second. And it holds up fine. Looks great in 4K, sounds great. But there's really not a whole lot of movie here. It's just one long 2-hour chase scene, pretty much. So, it fits in with the Indiana Jones universe, but still not one of my favorite. But it's Spielberg. How bad could it be? So really, out of all of the Indiana Jones movies, I only wanted to upgrade the first one into 4K. And for the last year, you've only been able to get all four in a set. Now they've finally come out and said they're going to release them individually. But, you know, it's fun to revisit. And how can I turn down a great deal on steelbooks? So Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, like I said, came out in 1984. This is the movie why they created the PG-13 rating. He got a lot of flack for ripping somebody's heart out in a movie. There's a lot of deaths in the movie. There's stabbings. People get pulled apart by alligators, or at least it looks like it. There's no real blood, except for some whipping scenes. I mean, he hits a woman and hits a kid. You know, it's pretty rough. And at the beginning, it goes PG. And I'm like, oh yeah, funny. The movie that created the PG-13 rating is still only rated PG. If you don't remember the time, yeah, a lot of people complained, so he actually petitioned to have a PG-13 rating created. And that's why we have one today, because of Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, and the heart-ripping out scene and a few other things. But like I said in the short version, this is really just one 2-hour-long chase movie. There's no real character development, not really. A romance to a certain extent, but that's about it. They introduce a couple new characters. We follow Indiana Jones through a 2-hour chase sequence because there isn't much of a story. There's not much investigating of anything. It just kind of happens. They go from one set piece to another. It never ends. Movie holds up, though, because of Steven Spielberg. From the opening dance number through all of the plane crashes and minecart chases and all of that, fight scenes, you name it. The scenes are choreographed well. They look great. There's a few of the blue screen scenes that don't hold up well. They did very good in restoring this from the original film, but some of those effects just don't hold up today. You can tell that, you know, there's a background that the people are falling into, sometimes animated. But some of the mine chase sequences come out better than you would think because those were filmed with miniatures on film and restored, mixed with the footage of them actually in the car versus miniatures of them in the mine cars. Looks really good. A lot of those effects look really good. There's some few superimposed explosions that don't look so great. You know, that was ILM at the time. But other than that, since they did a lot of it practically and a lot of it like makeup effects, and I gotta say the whole heart pulling out scene actually holds up pretty well, and the special effects hold up pretty well too as the chest closes back up. But movie flaw, that's how things go down the first time, but when Kate Capshaw gets put in the cage, they don't rip her heart out before putting her in the hot pit. Why did they do that to the first guy and not her? I don't know. Because she's the star and they couldn't do that because then they'd have to put the heart back in, and how are they going to do that? And I don't know, screenwriting laziness? I wouldn't imagine. George Lucas wrote it. A couple other people adapted it into a screenplay. Of course, Steven Spielberg directed this. Funny that as I started watching the Indiana Jones movies, I read an interview with Steven Spielberg who said, "My sequels are weak." Somebody asked him, he was doing interviews for the home video release of West Side Story, and he said he'll never do another musical, that it was really hard, and also that he's not good at it. He's always too confident when he makes his sequels, that the first movie is such a big hit, he goes into it with the best of intentions, but he's overconfident and doesn't, I guess, pay as much attention as he did the first time around. I don't know. Like I said, a Steven Spielberg sequel is still better than most people's movies. This is a fine movie. Just because I say it's my least favorite of the Indiana Jones movies doesn't mean it's a bad film. It is just a simple chase movie. It's an excuse to see Harrison Ford do some really cool stuff with the character and with these new characters. And I enjoyed it. It just feels so light compared to just watching Raiders of the Lost Ark 2 nights ago. That movie has depth and character development and arcs and all sorts of stuff and layers. And this was just kind of an action movie. And that's not a bad thing, especially in the time it was produced. That was exactly what we needed, I guess. It played very well. I remember it being a huge hit. And again, so many people were upset by the violence in it. That's why we have PG-13 now. So, because people were taking little kids to see these Indiana Jones movies. They were just PG. And if you remember Raiders of the Lost Ark, which I just reviewed, it's pretty hardcore for PG. There's people get shot in the head and blood and the exploding heads and all that kind of stuff. I mean, these movies push the envelope for what both Spielberg and Lucas were doing at the time. I mean, I guess Spielberg with Jaws, that was pretty violent for a PG movie, but... So, Indiana Jones, as far as the 4K goes, really looks good. I'd say it almost looks a hair better than Raiders because they spent more money on it. There's more brightly lit scenes. There's more neon. There's more bright colors. A lot of it's in tunnels, dingy, but no crushed blacks. The darkness had nice depth and shadow definition and really looked good. The Dolby Atmos surround sound, like Raiders, maybe a hair more full. Technology was getting better. These were early Dolby Surround mixes that have been converted into the new Dolby Atmos mixes. And like I said about Raiders, it does have all the dimensionality and the 3D bouncing around the room that you want from a Dolby Atmos mix, but the sound effects sound a little more old. And as great as you make them sound, they're still not going to sound like some of these brand new gunfire effects and explosions that we have in current movies just because, well, we were doing this for the first time. Ben Burtt, the guy who did all the sound effects for Star Wars, did them for Indiana Jones too, and he created all these things from scratch. There's some great making-ofs if you ever get a chance, if you're into that kind of movie-making stuff. Ben Burtt did some incredible things. To this day, he's still doing some amazing things, sampling certain things to get certain sounds, and how he gets them is just creative mind, But overall, the sound mix sounds a little older. It doesn't sound like a brand-new movie, but like I said, it's a good Dolby Atmos mix, and I'd give it high marks because it does, the gunfire bounces around the room, and when they're in the... on the raft going down the mountainside, you get sound effects all over. You feel like you're there. So it is a good active sound mix. It looks really good in 4K. It's just a light and fluffy action movie with Indiana Jones in it. It goes from beginning to end, and they save the day, and ta-da! Anyway. I'll continue my journey through all 4 of the Indiana Jones as we work our way to the 5th one whenever it's going to get released. So next up, I like it because Sean Connery's in it for the most part, but still Raiders is my favorite. So we'll see what happens after I visit the 3rd one. Coming up on a podcast near you. Scott Hamilton, I'm ROCKFILE. My links are below. Thanks for checking this out, listening to it, and making it a part of your day. I really appreciate you. Thanks for listening.